Hi everyone. This is week 5, and on week 5 we're going to be reading chapters 5 through 8. That's pages 75 to 142 of Picking Cotton. I hope you found the first week 4's part 1 interesting. I hope you found that it's not too hard to follow and read and that you understand most of it. But like I said before, if you have questions, you don't understand why something's happening, please let me know. For week 5, so what you have to read for this week, chapter 5, we are going to start reading Ronald Cotton's story. And so it starts 3 days after the rape. Chapter 5 goes through the entire trial, okay? So where for Jennifer, chapters 1 through 4, all of that is basically all of chapter 5 for Ron's story. Okay, so at the end of chapter 5, you'll see him getting convicted and sentenced. But you'll get to see his viewpoint on what happened with him, how the police officers treated him. Make sure you pay special attention to that. You'll see what happened with his alibi, because we did learn in chapter 4 that he had 2 different alibis, and Jennifer used that against him. So what are your thoughts on that? And then in chapter 6, he's kind of done with life. He's ready to move on. He's like, fine, get me to the prison. And so we get to see a little bit about what prison life is like for him, how he has to deal with some of the people there, his work. And then something very interesting happens in chapter 6. Chapter 6 is one of our shorter chapters, but he meets a guy who's from Burlington, where Ronald and Jennifer are from too. And he's like, you know what? That guy looks very similar to the composite sketch in my case. And so he finds out that the guy's from Burlington. His name is Bobby Poole. And he's like, wait a minute, you're in here for rape too and breaking and entering. Did you do my crimes? And Bobby's like, oh no, that wasn't me. But already at the very beginning of Ron's prison term, he thinks he knows who really did his crimes. And so you'll see that in chapter 6. And then chapter 7, we get to see a little bit more of life in prison for Ron. It's not always easy. He has to deal with people who want to mess with him, and he's got to stand up and figure out how to confront people and not get killed in the process. We see a letter from Ronald to his lawyers, and it's 1 year after he's been there, and he's like, hey, what's going on with the appeal, things like that. And they're working to get him a new trial because the judge did not allow the testimony of the fact that the second victim did not pick out Ronald Cotton. They kept that away from the jury, and so they're trying to appeal that the jury should have heard that information. And then you find something very interesting. Bobby has talked to someone else in prison. And so that gets back to Ronald. And so he's trying to deal with that. He's also trying to save his life, not get beat up. And it kind of comes down at the end in chapter 7, where he has to make a decision. And so I think he ends up making the right decision. And then in chapter 8, he gets his second trial. And so chapter 8 is all about that second trial and what happens there. Okay? So that's not all of Ron's story. There's still a few more chapters of Ron's story in part 2 of the book, but we're just going to be reading chapter 5 through 8. So like I did last week with the first part, I will do a video over each chapter where we break things down, talk about what's going on, if there's any extra videos or articles or anything like that that you need to look at, I'll put those in there as well. For this week, you won't have an annotation worksheet to do, but please make sure that you annotate, okay? So here you can see my copy of week 5. This is my annotation, okay? I've highlighted, you can underline, I made notations in the margins, okay? So keep doing that. That will definitely help you down the road. Actually, as I just went over those chapters, that's what I was using myself. I was using my annotations. And so for chapter 5, what you'll have to do is you'll have to write a summary, okay, about all 4 chapters. And I'll do another video and get us started on how to write that summary. So make sure you pay attention to that. So week 5 is reading chapters 5 through 8, and then you will have a summary to type up and write as well. So make sure that you plan out your time for reading this week. And then again, if you have a draft of the summary that you'd like feedback on, please let me know and I'll take a look at it and give you feedback for it. I hope you guys are enjoying the summer weather, staying cool. If you guys have any questions or comments or problems, please let me know. You guys take care and I'll talk to you later.